All right. Welcome once again to Housing Bubble 2.0 News of the Week. I'm Randy Patrick, your host with the most, talking about all sorts of fun stuff that's happening in today's housing market. Well, today, just a couple of topics. I actually think it's been kind of a quiet week with respect to news. I mean, the usual more inventory, dropping prices have been going on. That's past news, I suppose, but that's still happening. That's picking pace up. But today, a couple interesting things sort of came around here. So we're going to talk about KB Homes shares crater and whether Home Depot is going to be used as our key indicator for the housing market future. So if we talk about KB Homes, well, KB Homes shares fell 17% today, based on the fact that it's cutting its Q4 revenue estimates. I guess they have a conference call. They discuss what happened in Q3, and of course they revised their estimates for Q4, and people like to hear that, and the analysts give them a hard time, and therefore stock prices fall. So basically, they also adjusted downward selling prices going forward on Q4, the gross profit margin on Q4, and also its 2019 revenue estimates are also adjusted downward now as well. So this is the worst day of trading for KB Homes since 1992. So lots going on for the home builders these days. And again, a lot of the builders are in the same boat. It's not just KB Homes that is feeling the pain. Lots of them have had massive stock decreases over the year. Got a little bit of a list here. We're talking year-to-date drops. So KB, DR Horton is about a 33% drop year-to-date. Lennar, 35%. Pulte Group, 27.7%. NVR, 33%. Toll Brothers, almost 33%. Of course, KB Homes, 35%. Meritage Homes, about 27%. Taylor Morrison, 35%, and TRI Point, almost 30%. So, when you take a look at these builders that are in the housing indexes, and I mean, they're not talking 5-10%. We're talking, a third of their value in stock prices. They've lost year to date. And again, it goes back down to the same situation. They're moving less property, costs are going up, not as many home sales. They have to charge more for their homes because, to make the money, and people can't afford that. So it's once again, the housing market, the builders really sort of work through the economy. And what I've learned over the past couple of years is that, the economy does look to the home builders to see where things are at as a judgment of what's going on. Home builders employ people, they buy land, they buy services, they develop, they employ people, they do transactions. And I said before, once you've purchased a home, what do? You buy stuff, you furnish it, you get dishes, glasses, artwork, whatever you're doing, landscaping, or you buy lawnmowers, you buy garden equipment, you do stuff outside, put pools in. So, a new home purchase affects a lot of people, and a lot of industries are related to that. So obviously, when the market's down, people are looking at new home builders as being quite critical to our economy, and that's starting to slow down big time. Funny enough, too, to sort of on that same vein is the Home Depot issue. So there were some analysts that were talking today on CNBC regarding the Home Depot situation, and it looks like to me, it's kind of a bit humorous that Home Depot is almost becoming like a key indicator as to where the housing market's going to be, or a litmus test on that for the future. And the financial analysts are all bearish on, I guess you could say, the home improvement market as a whole. And just for information, Home Depot stocks are about 7.25% down year to date. But the reason why we're talking about this is because, I guess, based on some discussions, I guess everybody has their Q3 was better than expected, but I guess their outlooks for Q4 and and 2019 are not looking as good. And I guess the comment here that was important was Home Depot recently acknowledged that affordability is presenting challenges for the market, and we look like we're going to see a softer, real estate market in the near future. So again, it falls back down to interest rates. They're not done rising yet, according to many analysts, and according to what the Fed has stated. We expect another one in December and at least two more in the new year. But the point here is that interest rates they not only affect home prices and the ability for people to get mortgages and to purchase homes, they also affect other credit line type facilities. So student loans, car loans, and credit card rates are all tagged to interest rates. So clearly when they rise, the cost of borrowing rises as well too. And what I've learned is, I've read a few articles about this, but the majority of people who are looking to do home improvement put the most, like majority of people put those expenses on their credit cards, whether they take out a Home Depot card or a Lowe's card, or just they have their own Visa, MasterCards, Amex, whatever it is. Most people finance their home improvement costs with respect to credit facilities. So whether it's a credit card, credit line, whatever that is. And again, you could go to Home Depot and Lowe's and you could apply for their credit cards, etc. So this is how the issues relate across the board. So as I've done a lot of analysis and looking at the housing market, everything is related. There's always a connection from a statement here, a factor here. This is how it relates. This is how it, this is how it, I guess you could say, navigates throughout the whole system. So a study came up by the Harvard Joint Center of Housing Studies. They do studies every twice or three times a year on interesting things in our housing market. Their sort of thought process and what they found, which kind of relates to what I'm talking about here, is that people are staying in their homes longer than they did before. So home ownership tenure is at its highest rate in decades. The average is about a little over 8 years now. They also found that the average homeowner is getting older, number one, and they're buying their homes later in life. Now, we know, if by other analysis and discussions and articles, that, for example, the millennial generation, they're putting their home buying off because of what? Student debts, car loans, whatever. So some financial issues that generation faces have in turn, started their life, cycles, like getting married, having children, whatever. That has started that later, which means home ownership comes later as well too. And also, just as a side note, not every millennial wants to buy a home. That generation also wants to be more fluid and doesn't value home ownership or look at the same ways maybe people did in previous generations. So we have to keep that in mind. We also know that there's greater longevity with how, our lifespan. We are living older and longer as a society, and also population growth. So obviously over the past 10, 15 years, we've had more immigration, more population growth. So all those things add up to the fact that there's more people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s that are still owning homes, okay? And I guess the number of households with people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s is going to soar. Starting to gain, is going to soar right now. Also, this generation has difficulty in trading up or moving down. And the reason, again, if you have a home and it's a nice home, you've earned some equity, and you've got a reasonably good, attractive mortgage, say a rate in the 3s or 4s, if you're looking now to either move up so you're paying higher prices, you're taking more risk, and your mortgage payments now in a 5 to almost 6% range of mortgage rates, you're going to think twice. Do you really want to take that on? Same thing with downsizing. I mean, you're sort of the equity that you've built over the years is now going for a more expensive, compared to when you bought your home, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, that sort of delta is not there anymore. You don't have that extra equity boom, so it's costing you money. And a lot of people who are looking to retire were thinking of using that equity in their home as a means to fund their retirements, because we all know the fact that pensions aren't what it used to be. A lot of people who retire now don't have the same pensions, and Social Security is sort of sketchy at best as we go forward too. So, and that's another point here they made in the study, is that looking ahead, the ability for older people to afford housing will be closely tied to what they're making on Social Security. And that's where we could see some issues there, and that's the whole point. So, it's a parallel thought here that we're looking at here. Homes also are getting older. So if buyers are holding their homes longer, if they're staying in their homes for a longer period of time, if they're, if they're hitting the market at a later date, then the homes themselves are aging, at the same pace. And also, we know that with the home builders, we just talked about, KB Homes having hurting, and the rest of the home builders. So home builders are building less homes year after year. So when that happens, of course, there's less new homes to bring the average age of homes down, which means our home average, lifespan or the age of our homes increases. When you have homes that age and increase in age, what happens? Things break down, things need to be repaired, remodeled, etc., which brings us back down to the whole Home Depot litmus, which is where people are now, instead of buying a home, maybe I'm going to go improve my home, but I can't afford to do that, or maybe I can't take equity out, or I don't want to pay these high rates. So what do? I put my home improvement costs and expenses on my credit card, and now I've got further credit and debt issues to deal with. So you can see how this really is like this vicious circle here. So that's just what's going on. So, again, as I said, less homes being built over the past couple of years. Why is that? Well, we know builder stocks are down. We know their revenues are down. We know the fact that their costs are up. So material costs are up. Tariffs don't help that. Land costs are up. Entitlement costs are up. Development costs are up. Skilled labor is harder to find now. The last housing construction boom, there's a lot of skilled labor. A lot of that labor is no longer here. Either they don't do it or they've left the country. So it's less homes, more expenses, and therefore the builders can't build as many, and the appetite's not there. Even though we're, traditionally we've had low inventory over the past couple of years, we're just not producing that many homes. It all kind of runs in the same circle. Everything cross-pollinates and feeds the other issue. That's how I look at it. On other notes, mortgage applications are down 3.2% for the week, which is typical. And as we move into the winter and holiday time frame, we're probably going to see that drop even more. We are seeing more variable interest rate loans out now. That's very interesting. We're seeing more loans being generated by what's called the shadow banking industry. So the non-banks, which are like the Quicken Loans. You see TV commercials for Rocket Mortgage, which is part of Quicken Loans. So again, more of these non-banks are originating loans nowadays, which puts more risk in the marketplace. I think Quicken Loans now took over Wells Fargo as the next, the number one originator of loans in the past little while. So they're doing the most loans for home buying right now. Banks are also easing their lending standards. I just read that today. But even though they're doing that, home building is still eroding, which is quite interesting. So they're saying, okay, let's get more programs, let's add some more variables, do some more subprime, let's ease our standards, which, if you think of it, is not the safest or best thing to do for the housing market. It puts us at a lot more risk, but home buying is still eroding. Even that's not, I guess you could say, compelling people to step up and do more purchasing. So how does this affect the overall market? Well, I want to talk to you about that because according to a survey, the Q4 Modern Home Buying Survey that was just completed by Value Insured, this is really interesting. More than 3/4 of Americans surveyed say that their individual housing markets are cooling down. So the people who live across the country are noticing this and can see it, can feel it, can understand it. 67% of the millennials that were in that survey feel that the homes that they purchase today, or if they buy a home today, will definitely decrease in value next year. So you buy it today, you know it's going to go down. Why would I even do that? All right. And more than half the respondents, we're talking 59%, say they will wait for a meaningful correction before buying a home. So almost 60% of people say we're not going to buy right now. We want to see something happen in the marketplace that makes sense to us before we purchase a home. So as we've always talked about before, if rates continue to rise and they're not slowing down, that means my buying power is reduced, my monthly expenses are up. I need to have an offset to that to buy a property and move into. Simple as that. So again, people are waiting. That was interesting. And out of that survey, 14% have said they're going to drop out of home buying altogether if a correction does not occur. So they're just going to still rent or remain renters or do something else. They're not even going to think about buying a house. So that's really interesting when you see what's going on in this marketplace. So really, it looks like the people have finally spoken. And that's what I was talking about in the last video, is the fact that, people are commenting, going, well, I don't think the crisis is going to be as bad as 2008, and, we don't see it happening this way. Well, you know what, you're entitled to your own opinion, and that's great. But, the biggest difference, like I personally, I think all the signs are there, and the similarities are there, so you can't ignore them. We ignored them before, you can't ignore them now. But the difference is that our information is literally at your fingertips, whether your tablets, your phones, the internet. We can look at things, like as I always say, just before I create a video, I do a once more look online to see if anything interesting just popped up, because once I record this and then sort of render it and get it loaded up on YouTube, something can change, and now I'm 4 days out on the next time I talk to you guys. So it's almost humorous to that respect. But think about how things are changing. So people nowadays, I almost call it like a social movement. People nowadays know more about the market than they did 10 years ago, and they're now it's almost like they're not going to put up with it. So as a social movement, we're not going to pay these high interest rates. We're not going to pay these high prices. We're going to wait it out. So what happens? Well, again, is this a surprise? Sellers are going to take the hit. So let's see how the mortgage companies, the realtors, and the sellers respond to this going forward. It's only got to go one way, and that's down. And a lot of the analysts that are looking pro for their business, they want to look at things and be positive for their own individual businesses, are saying, hey, there's an acknowledgement we're not going to see these double-digit increases anymore. We're probably going to see 2 to 3%. Well, you know what? 2 to 3% is still an increase as far as I'm concerned across the board. It's not a, what did they say, meaningful correction that would compel somebody to buy a house. So what is the meaningful correction? That's the number we have to get to. That's the number that's unknown. Is a 5 to 10% reduction in prices a meaningful correction? Not according to my book, okay? I think that's a shift. That's a shift, maybe a small little blip in the marketplace. That's not a meaningful correction. You got to talk 20 to 30% to be meaningful that I think will offset buyers' habits, and I think that's what they're looking for. So right now, more inventory in the market across the board. People are commenting, people are talking about it. Every blog I read, every hour of the day is showing that, whether it's San Diego, Los Angeles, the Bay Area of California, Seattle, whether it's New York City, whether it's Miami, whether it's Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, Illinois. Everybody is starting to face this now. Your own metro, your own microcosm may still be doing okay, but you know what? Eventually, this will start to flood to all of the locations across the country where people will just say, they're going to cry uncle, and they've had enough, and that's what's going to happen. So that's how we'll see how they respond. The only way to respond is buyers are going to offer less, and sellers are going to have to take less if they want to cash out. And just for fun, in closing here, even the uber wealthy are taking a hit on real estate. So it's interesting when you look at some of the news sites to see that these mega mansions, like these multi-million-dollar properties, whether they're mansions or apartments or condos or lofts that have been developed in the big cities, a lot of them are coming on the market now, and they're still asking a heck of a lot of money for these things. Of course, that's the way it is. But now we're starting to see people who paid, I guess you say, a premium for that. They're trying to cash out now before they start to lose too much. So just as a fun little side note here, Keith Richards, obviously the Rolling Stone fame, just recently sold his New York City apartment for $9 million. Now, it was originally listed for $12.3 million. He sold it for $9 million, and what he sold it for was $1.5 million less than what he paid for it in 2014. So now you see people who are going, you know what? This may keep going down, and again, who knows what his reasons were for selling, whether he doesn't use it anymore, the upkeep, like who knows? But the point though is that people are going, I want to get out now. I want to get out where at least I can get some decent cash for my property, not take too big a hit. So this guy took a hit of $1.5 million. He probably can afford to do that, but the longer he waited, that hit's going to get bigger and bigger. So that's kind of my point, is that even the people who bought all these mega places are looking around going, do I need this? And maybe I should start to get rid of it because this is going to sit on the market for a long time. And I'm never going to sell this unless I start dropping big time. I don't want to lose any more than I have already. So that's the scoop for this week. Again, looks like this market is starting to get after everyone. So again, if rock stars can take a loss, everybody can too, as far as I'm concerned. So again, thanks for the views. Thanks for the subscribership. Thank you for the comments. I do read them. I find them interesting. We're getting a lot of people are talking in the same sort of vein we're talking about here, that a correction is happening. We just don't know how far it's going to go. I do think, in summary, it's interesting that when you take a look at the home builders, and they're already saying for 2019 that I see this slowing down big time. And when Home Depot is going, we need to prepare our investors for what we see as a slowdown. They're not coming out saying how bad it's going to slow down, but they're setting the stage and lowering, or we'll say setting the stage and expectations, so things or people aren't caught unawares and are shocked. So that's our message today, is that we know it's going to happen. Let's look forward to it happening. Let's be prepared for it to happen. Let's navigate the market effectively and do our best not to lose money and to take advantage of the opportunities this will bring us, and just to be aware, because the majority of people probably aren't at this point in time. Anyway, I'm Randy Patrick. Thank you for your time today, and we look forward to talking in a few extra days.